Brenda, you're on mute.
Sorry. Are we obligated to have an annual general meeting? I know we have to do a report, but because we're a public corporation, I didn't know whether we were required to do an actual meeting.
Livestream has commenced.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. So good afternoon again, and thanks to members of the public and our tenants who are rejoining us. We're back into the public realm. We've had a couple of really good conversations, and we're now going to put those motions up so that the members can review and vote on those motions. And the first one is a motion regarding the CEO 2023 performance evaluation. And the motion is be it resolved that the board form a special committee to review the CEO evaluation. May I have a mover, please?
So moved, Linda.
Thanks, Linda. Seconded by Maureen. All in favor? That is approved. Thank you very much. And we move on to the second in-camera item. So again, this is an extension of agreement for the Office of the Commissioner of Housing Equity. And the motion reads, be it resolved that the Board of Directors, A, approve the amendment to the service delivery agreement substantial in the form as attached to this report. Authorize the appropriate staff to take all necessary action to give effect to the above recommendation. And C, authorize the CEO to execute the amendment to the services delivery agreement with such amendments as considered necessary and appropriate. May I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Jim. Oh, sorry, that was Warren. Thanks, Warren. And Brenda, seconded by Brenda. All in favor? That is approved. Okay, moving right along. We're now on item number 17, which is the Corporate Governance and Human Resources Committee. I'll let Councillor Crisanti set it up. I know there are a number of items on this agenda, including the TSHC annual report, a report on the Employee Engagement and Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Survey. So I'll let Councillor, you go ahead to set it up, and then you can bring staff in as you deem appropriate.
Thank you, Fareed. So yes, so the first meeting of the corporate governance was March 18th, just last month. And at that meeting, Jill provided her final update. So while we miss Jill, we of course welcome Tom back. Is Tom back on this meeting here? You there, Tom?
I'm here. Here I am, Councillor.
Okay.
Nice to see you.
All right. Good to know. Good to see you, Tom. So, and then Grant presented the TSHC governance work plan for 2024 and provided a brief update of the TSHC policy management framework. Carol and the survey vendor, Flex Surveys, they're with us today as well, provided a presentation summarizing the results of the employee engagement and equity and diversity inclusion survey. So we're gonna, as I said, hear from them shortly. Lastly, Arlene provided an update of the 2023 TSHC annual report. So I'd like to express my thanks to the members of the Corporate Governance Committee and for all their incredible hard work. And that's it. So now I'm just going to pass it on to Arlene for the annual report.
Thank you, Councillor Crisanti. So I bring forward to the board for approval this afternoon the 2023 annual report. The report covers our achievements throughout the year, including all the work staff has done with tenants, be it in the operations space or the programs and partnership space, in the support space of all those that work in the corporate offices. So I'd like to put forward the report for approval, and I would also like to note that last year the request was made for us to do a separate report for tenants. We will be taking portions of the annual report and putting it into our upcoming editions of Senior Speak to accommodate for making the information more accessible, because based on the conversations we've had over the past year with tenants, it wasn't a highly utilized publication, but we know that there are some terrific stories in our publication for the annual report that we would like to reproduce and share with tenants as they reflect on the achievements for 2023. So the report is before the board for approval.
Okay.
Thanks, Arlene. Are there any questions? I know this committee, the Corporate Governance and HR Committee, had a thorough airing of the report. Lots of good discussion there. Any further comments, questions?
It looks very nice, guys.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll pass that on to the team.
No, really, because it's hard to have dry black and white print, so it looks.
All right, that's great. So I'll
Yeah.
put the motion on the floor. Item number 17A, TSHC 2023 annual report. Be it resolved that the Board of Directors approve the 2023 Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation annual report. May I have a seconder, please?
I'll second.
Sorry, I'll move. Sorry, Brenda. Moved by Brenda, seconded by Linda. All in favor? That is approved. Again, thanks, Arlene. I know this is a lot of tedious work went into this with you and your team, and I had seen different versions, so I'm really pleased the way it turned out, and I'm sure that the report speaks for itself in terms of the accomplishments and everything that has been done in the last year or so. So thanks again to the team for working on this, and also echoing the sentiments expressed by Councillor Crisanti. Thanks to the board as well for their input. So we'll move to item number 17B, which is the Employee Engagement and Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Survey 2023 results. Carol or Dave, if you want to set this up, and then we'll invite our guests to perhaps make some comments before we get into questions.
Thank you. Through the chair. So this item is for information. And so Philip Rich, Senior Account Manager with Flex Surveys, will be presenting the overall survey. Just to add some context, the survey was scheduled for the third quarter of 2023. And so November 1st to the 15th, all staff were invited to complete the survey. Participation rate was 79%, which is statistically significant. The survey highlights include an engagement, our overall engagement rate was 82%, endorsement rate of 90%, and satisfaction of 3.8 across all questions on a 5-point scale. So by all measures, very, very solid results. Philip Rich, Senior Account Manager with Flex Surveys, is going to present to the board the survey results, and then thereafter, if there are any questions, we can respond. So over to you, Philip.
Okay, beautiful. Thanks so much for including me here today. Obviously, my job is to bring forth some of the results, and I'm happy to then open up for any questions afterwards. Someone taking care of the slides for me? Okay, perfect. If we could just jump right in, perfect, into the participation, one slide in. Again, we had great participation. If we can kick it one more, please. Thank you. At the time of the survey, we're looking early to mid-November. You can see here we have a population of about 300 total staff. A lot of growth since the previous survey that was conducted back in 2021. And not only did we have growth in staff, we had growth in the participation rate. So the key thing to keep in mind here, 79% participation gives us very accurate results. And in addition to that, it makes sure that when we're building off the results, people are going to feel it at the end of the day. If we move ahead, the main theme of the day I want to focus on is engagement. And when we're talking about engagement, it's actually built off the first key question within the survey. What is the likelihood that you'd recommend our organization as a place to work? And so what we're looking at here is the scale, not the results to the question itself. But the purpose behind it is to give us a feeling of different caricatures within our employee population. Promoters, passives, and detractors. And so the key thing is the difference between these groups. Promoters are highly engaged employees that really want to be part of the organization moving forward. Passive promoters are also engaged, but there's something small holding them back. And detractors are disengaged employees. And the purpose of this whole study was not to identify who are the detractors, but to identify what are the roadblocks that are holding them back? And by removing those, how can we really engage all employees moving forward? So as we look at the results on the next slide, what we're going to see is the actual breakout of our staff. And you can see here, just under 50% of all feedback, all staff, all respondents came back as full promoters, highly engaged employees. We have another third that are coming in as passive, so again, strong energy. And then the remainder, 18%, are those detractors that we're going to want to work on. And again, the key here, this can't tell us what to do, but it gives us a great measuring stick moving forward. Are we moving in the right direction? Now, in addition to engagement, we also want to focus in on 2 key tracker numbers. And this is what we're going to use as an organization to really, again, keep on top of where we're going. On the left-hand side, we have NPS, or Net Promoter Score. This is one of the key themes within our industry that we tend to focus on. What is our NPS? And what it's looking at is our promoters minus detractors. A little bit of a tricky equation here. And as you can see on the left-hand side, this scale, the axis, actually goes from negative 100 to positive 100. A score of 30 is an excellent score, particularly for a first-time survey like this in terms of polling our staff. And our goal is to see this number increase as we move forward. To give it some context, you could see some benchmarks next to it, 25th, 50th, 75th percentile. This is us matching up your organization to other similar organizations based on size, geography, and industry. Key thing to keep in mind is we're not getting compared against every similar organization. We're getting compared against the 20 to 30% that take the test, that conduct this type of survey. So we're coming in the top third of top performers, very strong mark, and something we're looking to grow as we move forward. Now, NPS does not include those in the middle, those 7s and 8s, those passives promoters. So we're also going to be looking at the right-hand side, engagement, and that's focusing on the positive energy, glasses half full approach. Essentially 7, 8s, 9s, and 10s are passives plus our promoters. That's where the 82% comes in. So these are our key figures to kick things off. To me, from an outside looking in, it shows we have a very strong foundation. The key is what can we work on to raise the bar of excellence? We skip ahead a couple slides. What we're now going to see is endorsement. And the key to endorsement is it helps us build up our engagement. In order to really have a link to the organization, it's one thing to like where you work, it's another thing to believe in what you're doing. And that's really what this question targets. Do we believe in the mission of the organization? So we're looking at the same exact scale here from 0 to 10. And as we go to the next slide, we're going to see again the makeup of our staff. And again, another huge turnout here, now up to 63% full promoters, that strong energy, that belief in the mission day to day. 27%, again, still connected, but just looking for 1 or 2 small tweaks along the way. And then you can see the detractors have really declined. Now, in most organizations, we see a little bit of a step up between these 2 figures. In this case, we're seeing a little bit more of a jump or a leap between them. Very strong belief in the mission. And as we go to the next page, we're going to have our 2 key trackers again. Again, jumping off the page here on the left, NPS 53. I know sometimes a 53 doesn't really jump out to us, but in this case, we're coming in well above that 75th percentile of top performers. So really strong score. And same thing on the right, really popping through at 90% endorsement. This is something to me we want to celebrate as we continue to build off the survey results. We all believe in what we're doing here. Let's just make sure we're taking care of each other along the way. Now, the remainder of the survey is going to give us a little bit more detail into, well, what should we be working on? And so as we skip ahead, we're going to now come back to the overall average, which is starting to link back to overall satisfaction. We could just move along here. Perfect. And what we're looking at here is a 3.8 out of 5. So this is the body of the survey. It's using a 5-point scale. 1 is strongly disagree, 5 is strongly agree. We're gathering all the feedback across all the questions in the survey. You can see it collapses into an overall average of 3.8 out of 5. For context, we can kick over to the right again, and we can see some of these external benchmarks, again, coming in that top third of top performers. So this lets us know that overall satisfaction is strong across the board, but we have to continue to unravel this 3.8 to really get a good understanding of it. And so as we move ahead, we're going to be able to break that up across all the different sections and themes within the survey. We could just go ahead 1 slide here, perfect. And what we're looking at here are the different themes as we're going across the survey. And now jumping into some of the specific questions that were making up the survey as well. And so I just want to quickly talk to some of the high performers and low performers to give a little bit of context here. I know how my job contributes. I know what's expected of me. I'm proud to work here. In my role, I have the opportunity to do my best, and I plan on remaining here 2+ years. These are some of the key themes that jumped out, that very strong averages as well. You can see on the right, really high scores or percentage of 4s and 5s. This is coming from every corner of the organization. If we go ahead a slide again, we'll see some areas of opportunity. And this is going to let us see some of the things, low-hanging fruit, things that we're going to want to keep in mind and work on over the course of the next year. First one here is department staffing. That's going to be a key theme that we want to focus on. Not only is it staffing, it's workload, team by team. We want to have those conversations. Number 2 on the list is pay. This is common. 95% of organizations actually have pay in their top 2, so not a big surprise for me to see it here, but it's actually a pretty strong score on an overall basis. What's normal for pay? Typically, we're looking at a range of 2.7 to 3.2. So a 3.4, even though it's in our low performers, still a very strong score on an overall basis in comparison to other organizations. Job opportunities, open and fair to all applicants. Again, keep in mind, this is a survey of perceptions. It's not saying that things aren't fair and open. It's just how people perceive things. And the key here is learning where we have to do a little bit more from a communication standpoint, really making sure people see and have ability to apply in these positions. Efforts and achievements being recognized. This is always a key theme that we continually want to work on within engagement surveys. We have 50% of staff coming in as 4s and 5s. Well, we want to continue to work on the other 50%, 1s, 2s, and 3s as well. And then lastly, doing a good job working with employees to improve their performance. This is about the day-to-day. This is about me, those around me. And again, the purpose of this is to get an overall viewpoint, but then to help individual leaders really focus on the particular needs of their teams. As we continue on through, you're going to get a sense of things. This is a full breakdown of all the individual questions within the survey. I know it's very small, but the main takeaway I want us to see here is the overall picture on the right. This is the distribution of the different scores, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, across all the different questions within the survey. So this would be the first half of the survey questions. If we could jump ahead to the next page, this will be the second half. And the main thing that jumps out to me, and I hope resonates with everyone on today's call as well, is we have this green wave from the right-hand side of the page. The vast majority of all the feedback, we're talking 3/4 or so of all feedback, is coming back as 4s and 5s. So it's not to say that there's no big opportunities, 1s and 2s along the way. They pop out here and there, but the vast majority of the opportunity is actually coming down the middle, those 3s. And this is really low-hanging fruit. Again, it's not, a 3 doesn't mean people are unhappy. A 3 just means we have to communicate a little bit better. It doesn't even necessarily mean change. We just have to really focus on those areas and make them top of mind as we're working with our different teams. So if we kick on ahead, I'm going to pull out some key insights that I'd like to highlight for us as well.
Just a time check, Philip. We're beyond the 5 o'clock time realm. I want to seek the committee's consent to move beyond 5 o'clock. So if folks are okay, we can keep going. Just be cognizant that we're now beyond 5 o'clock.
Okay, I'm gonna start trimming things down. So if we can jump ahead just a couple pages here. And one more, yeah. So high level, this is just comparing, again, all of the individual scores within the survey against other similar organizations. And what this will give us a little bit of context around is some external benchmarking. This is the first page. If we click ahead, we're gonna see across the body of the survey, the vast majority of all the questions are lining up really well. 75th percentile, 50th percentile, which is still very strong. And if we go to this last page, again, another page of really strong matchups. One more, please. And there's only a couple areas, again, that are low-hanging fruit. And then we want to take it to the qualitative. Now, within the qualitative, what we could see here is we had a huge outpouring of comments from staff. It showed that people really believed in the confidentiality. And if we go to the next page, it's going to pull out some of the high-level key themes. On the positive, great services, coworkers, work environment, culture. These are some of the key themes that came back from the unaided open comments. The next page is going to highlight some of the opportunities, whether it's policies and procedures, work-life balance, salary and benefits. Those are going to be some of the key themes that we're going to work on. Now, to just wrap things up quickly, if we go ahead, I also want to talk about the EDI portion of the survey, equity, diversity, and inclusion. We had a specific tracking question that we included as well. Again, you can see here, similar scale, 0 to 10. If we click ahead, we're going to see this is an area that we want to continue to focus and work on. On the next page, we'll see we had 43% of staff came back as full promoters, 33% passives, but we have a quarter of staff that's saying, look, this is important to us. This is top of mind. We want to continue to work in this area. And if we click ahead a couple, we also had some identification questions. One more, please. Perfect. And what this is going to give us is an overall picture of the organization. What is the makeup of their organization? As you can see here, we have overall gender identity. On the next page, we're going to be able to check in. We're identifying, you can see here, a number of different metrics. And the key thing that jumped out to me, if we can just cycle ahead as well, is across all of these different areas, we have very high representation across within the employee population. The key is, this is obviously a key theme that resonated with people. We want to continue to have the conversation. We want to continue to dive into some of the areas that matter for them when it comes to really making sure that we have a fully inclusive environment. If we can now just skip ahead to the last 2 or 3 pages, if you don't mind, what I just want to talk about is next steps. So if we keep going a couple more here, we should get to a timeline. One more, perfect. And we've taken the organization through multiple steps here. We've presented to all levels, starting at senior leadership, bringing things to leaders. Now what we're doing is really working on the action plans to bring them back to staff. And if we go one more slide, it's just a quick little summary of some of the action items that have been developed at this point. So we're at just about 90% of all departments have created action plans by this point. We have 60 action plans developed. You can see about 3 per department. And on the next slide, the last slide, it'll just give you a sense of some of the key items that are being worked on, again, across different areas of the organization. Training and development, collaborative initiatives within different departments, feedback recognition. These are some of the key themes that are being driven from the survey. So I know it was a lot in a very short amount of time, but hopefully if anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to dive into anything. Please feel free.
Okay, thanks, Philip. Maybe you can take the slide down, whoever's doing the slide presentation, so we can see the committee. Are there any questions, any follow-up?
Just a quick one, Mr. Chair. It's Councillor Morley.
Go ahead, yeah,
So much, Philip, through the chair for this presentation and high-level summary. I'm just curious, how regularly will this be an annual thing that we'll continue to look at and be able to track our improvements along the way? Or I'm just curious specifically around how regularly this will be conducted so we can kind of check in and understand our progress.
So that's a great question. It's something in terms of the original design, the purpose or the goal was to have a yearly survey. Whether it's a full or a pulse, there's some different options that are still being worked out. The truth is they're fantastic results on an overall. So the key is just giving the team, especially with the first run, enough time to build up and get those action plans in process. So we're still working on, when the repeat is, but that's the general goal, I would say, on an overall basis.
That's
Thanks,
great.
Carol, anything to add before I ask Linda?
Through the chair, I think Philip captured it. We are working with Flex Surveys to determine the best time to launch our second pulse check or full survey.
Okay, thanks. Linda?
First comment, there's very good results, and as somebody who has been with this organization since it got set up, it makes me feel like it's a confirmation that that the work that has been put in is actually being demonstrated. As an organization, is there anything that you can reflect on? Like, is there something about being new? If you've done actually surveys with other organizations as they're formed, that actually you have that higher level of engagement, and anything that you would actually recommend knowing that context?
So, the truth is, I would normally say the opposite. Normally, when you're a little bit newer in this process, you would see lower results on an overall basis, because this is something you build up over time. When you think of the benchmarks as well that I was referring to, good, better, best, 20 to 30% of other organizations, most of them are ahead of us. Most of them have been doing this 5, 10, 15 plus years. They've had the opportunity to go back and forth. So, the truth is they're great results, but I only think the sky is the limit, because by acting on the feedback, by implementing change, positive change, small change along the way, I think it's just the start of things to come. So, it's a great foundation. It's something that you shouldn't take for granted, definitely, but it's definitely not the norm just for an early survey.
Thanks. Anything else, Linda?
No, that's helpful, and I think probably some good wisdom for us in terms of the not taking it for granted part. But thanks for the feedback.
Thanks, Brenda. Go ahead.
Two quick comments. Wonderful results, as you said. I know two things that stuck out for me. The question about would you stay to work more than 2 years, or how did you phrase it? That one?
Yeah, for 2 more years, exactly.
That was a little soft, which to me is a little red flag, because in this post-COVID employment era, retention of staff is going to become the #1 goal, right? So I just want to highlight that one. And the second one is something related to supervisory supports. That was a little lower than other things. And I think I'm a big believer in building up staff, and I think supervisory skill capacity is something often might be overlooked or not as deeply entrenched. And I would highlight that as something to look at, because the more you empower and skill base your supervisors, the better it is for the staff. Then they will feel a sense that they are being listened to, they are being considered for promotions, right? And stuff like that. So those are the two things I just want to highlight.
Thanks, Brenda. Anyone else? Yeah, thanks. I just want to echo some of the sentiments expressed by the committee members. I agree. I think the results are great. I think the key is, as Linda indicated, is for us to be able to sort of work on an action plan, and perhaps once we get into, to Deputy Mayor Morley's point, once we get into a year-over-year review, we can better gauge whether or not we're making progress. The one comment I would have, and I don't need a response necessarily, is that one of the, I was going to raise two issues. Brenda raised one of them, which was supervisory support, but I also was going to raise the issue around fair and open to all qualified candidates. This is the whole transparency of the hiring process. And I didn't see that anywhere in the action plan, in that word diagram that you proposed. So, I don't want to get into the operation of this, because that's not our role, but I just want to highlight that seemed to be the major criticism from many public sector organizations. And I think we need to sort of make sure that transparency and accountability does find its way into the action plan. And that outreach, I think, is also a component of that transparency. So anyway, thank you. Appreciate it. Philip, thanks for the work you did. And Carol, thanks for your leadership in this regard. Tom, thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
I'm sure Dave and others have been involved in this as well. And we look forward to the implementation, and at some point in time, the ability to kind of monitor what's happening year over year. But certainly it speaks well for the organization and the leadership and the work that has been going on at TSHC. So kudos to you folks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Again, folks, if you can bear with me, we'll try and end at around 5:30. Sorry for taking an extra half an hour of your time, but we've got one additional item to go through.
Excuse me, Fareed, just one last point. On the DEI reporting, I think we should have one for the board as well. And I want to put on notice here that I think the board needs to participate in the same CABR training and other related trainings that we are expecting our staff to do, and which they have universally done. So I'd like to add that as an item to be discussed at a different point, but I want it to be a condition that the board do their DEI plan.
Sure. We can have that discussion. Okay. All right. So Tom, item number 18. Is there any comment? You or Grant?
Yeah, through the chair, Grant's going to take this.
Okay.
Thank you, Tom. So through the chair, This particular item, the TSHC Annual General Meeting and 2023 Audited Financial Statements. This item is specifically to address requirements under the Business Corporations Act and our shareholder direction to bring forward for an annual general meeting. And Brenda, you had mentioned earlier, is this a requirement? Yes, we do have a requirement to have an annual meeting. So this particular report and the recommendations that are before you, this report was designed with input from the City of Toronto, and the intent is, if these recommendations are approved, as you vote on these motions, this would support TSHC moving forward with forwarding this to the City of Toronto to form part of an upcoming meeting of initially the Executive Committee in June and then City Council in July to form the annual general meeting for TSHC. The wording of the recommendations builds upon some of the other items that have been brought forward in today's meeting. So, for example, the annual report that was approved earlier in today's meeting, the audited financial statements that were approved earlier in today's meeting, the appointment of the auditor as approved earlier in today's meeting, for example, as well, are all built into this report. And then there are a couple of other elements that are included in this report that the city has asked us to include around executive compensation and financial impacts, which we have provided. I'll address any questions at this stage.
Thanks a lot, Grant. Are there any questions from committee members? From the board? All right, if not, I'll read the motion. So this is item number 18, and it has to do with the TSHC Annual General Meeting and 2023 Audited Financial Statement. Be it resolved that its Chief Executive Officer recommends that 1, the board arrange with the City Clerk to call the Annual General Meeting of the shareholder for Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation during a portion of the City Council meeting at which these recommendations are considered, and recommends that City Council A, receive the board-approved Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation 2023 Annual Report. B, receive the board-approved Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation 2023 Audited Financial Statements. C, appoint the KPMG LLP as the auditor of Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation for the fiscal year 2024, and authorize the Board of Directors of Toronto Senior Housing Corporation to set the fee of the auditor as recommended by the board. D, to receive the Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation 2023 Executive Compensation Disclosure Form, attachment 1 to this report. 2, the board recommends that City Council receive the financial impact section regarding known and anticipated financial outlooks and impacts, current and future years, for Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation, forming attachment 2 to this report. Number 3, the board authorizes the Chief Executive Officer on behalf of the board to submit the board's recommendations and materials identified in recommendations 1 and 2, once approved by the board at its meeting of April 25th, 2024, to the City Clerk for consideration by Executive Committee and City Council. So that's the motion. May I have a mover, please? Moved by Brenda, seconded by
Councillor Morley.
Councillor Morley. All in favor? That is approved. All right, so we've come to the end of the formal agenda. Are there any other items that any directors would like to table at this stage? Seeing none, I'm going to move the motion to terminate or adjourn. Be it resolved that the meeting be terminated. Don't rush to move this item. Deputy Mayor Morley moved, seconded by
Linda.
Thanks, Linda, and thanks, directors. I appreciate you spending the additional 20 minutes or so to get us through the agenda. A really good conversation in the public realm and also in camera. And again, I do appreciate all the time you spent going through the various reports and recommendations. And once again, I want to thank staff for all of the documentation that they provide in support of the agenda. And again, thanks to our committee chairs for bringing forward their items as well. So until we meet again, have a good evening. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody. Good to see
Great
everyone.
meeting. Thanks to the team.
Take care, everyone. Be safe.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.